Okay, so I'm guessing you probably want to know how we actually play rolling bears, so this section is to tell you exactly that. And there are two different ways of playing, Wuppertal and Hollandica. I wish I would describe that in the intro. They are, although it's the same game, it's played in a totally different way. And for Wuppertal, we'll deal with Wuppertal first because it's the simpler one. These cards here will show you how it's done. And for Wuppertal, there's two different ways of collecting the dice once they're... maybe I should mention first, players take turns to roll dice into the centre, and then they take out sets of dice corresponding to the ones I'm about to tell you about. Then the next person rolls a certain number of dice in, and then to join the ones that the first person didn't use, and then they can use all the dice in the centre together to make their sets from. And it continues like that, with people going around the table, rolling dice in, taking the sets out and putting them on their scoreboards, which I'll be telling you about in just a minute. So, Wuppertal, let's return to Wuppertal again. Here we go. So here we are. This is what we call a matching set for Wuppertal. And the matching set is where the colours of all the dice are the same and the numbers are all the same. So you could have 4 black 4s, or you can have 3 blue 6s. Remember that the dice are always worth the same as they are laid out on your scoreboard. So the score for 4 black dice, it doesn't matter what number is on them, but the score for them is going to be 20 points. Similarly, the score for the blue ones here, the 3 blue ones, because blue dice are worth 3 points each, this score is 9 points because you've got 3 times 3. Now, a special case of a matching set is with animals. If you get 3 animals the same, then you can take them and put them on your scoreboard, and we're describing this in a minute. You'll put them on your animal pen, but they don't immediately score you any points. You have to wait till the end of the round before you get any points for them. And if you get the best animal set, which is a bigger animal set than anyone else, and if there are 2 people with the animal sets which are the same size, then the one with the animal set which is higher up on the animal hierarchy gets the points, and they move their dice into this special column which scores them 8 points. The animal hierarchy is bear first, then wolf, then raven, and then hedgehog, and then fish. So anyway, I've only described half of it because there's also the running sets for Wuppertal, and the running sets are an ascending run of consecutive dice, like this one here, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for a running set for Wuppertal, then the dice in a running set have to be all totally different from the matching sets. They have to be all different colours. And you can have a running set for anything from 4 is the maximum down to 2 is the minimum for a running set. For Wuppertal matching set, the maximum is 4, and you can go right down to a singleton, which is just 1. And in all cases, for both the running and matching sets, the dice all score by whatever their colour. Their colour tells you how much they're worth. And you put them on your scoreboard, and I'll tell you about the scoreboard in a minute in a separate video. Right, so that's Wuppertal. Now we move on to Hollandica, which turns the logic round completely. Everything is the same that I've told you so far, in that you take turns to roll dice into the middle, and then you take turns to take a set out, or where a set of the sets involved are the ones which are valid for Hollandica. And for a matching set, we have matching sets and running sets again in Hollandica. For the matching set, you have all the numbers match, but in this case they all have to be different colours. So we've turned the logic totally on its head from what we had in Wuppertal. And for Hollandica, again, we've changed the logic for running sets in that you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, an ascending sequence of dice, but in this case they all have to be the same colour. Now, what's again very, very different about Hollandica is that the way of collecting animals is different. In Wuppertal you can collect animals as a set, as a matching set, where you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 animals which are all the same, and you put them in your animal pen. For Hollandica, you are able to collect a maximum of 1 animal per turn by putting the animals in as a wild card as part of one of your running sets. So you have, for example, a normal running set would be if they're all blue and you've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whereas you could score a running set with black dice, which is 2, 3, 4, with the bear sitting in instead of the 5, and then a 6. So you take the 5 dice out, you would put the 4 black dice onto your black column, or rather Hollandica, whichever column you decided to, because it's where you allocate dynamically the colours to each of the maroon coloured rows. But so you put the number dice on the normal columns, and then the bear here, Mr. Bear, will go onto the bear space in the animal hierarchy, which is also now known as an animal pen. So it's quite a useful way, because that means you can score on normal numbers at the same time as you're building up your animals. And in this case, rather than trying to get an animal set of as many as possible of the same animal, you're now trying to get single animals of as many different types as possible, and the person that gets the most different types with just 1 animal is the one who gets the best animal set. And so that's it, that's the differences between Hollandica and Wuppertal. Inverted logic and lots more scoring strategies, or strategies to stop your opponent from getting a good score. Now we're going to talk about the boards. When we first started playing and testing out the game, we didn't have any boards, and we showed it to lots of people, and it was really quite a pain to add up the scores at the end, and people saying, is there going to be an easier way to add up the scores? So we came up with the idea of having boards which would allow us to do that. And here is an example of the board for the Wuppertal Rules, which is the version of the game that I designed when I was sitting in the bath preparing to go to Wuppertal on my day after Essenspiel, which is something we do every year. The boards are designed so that when you collect dice on your throw, you can place them on the board at the beginning of the round. There's no dice on the board, so you look at the top number on the row, and the top numbers are all 0, so your total score is the total of those, which is 0. As you collect dice of the particular colours, and as we discussed earlier, the values of the dice depend on the colour. So for example, if I were to collect some blue dice, I would place them in this blue column here, and you can see that if I place 1 blue dice on the cover up the 0, then my score in that column becomes 3. Similarly, if I get a green dice, put it here, then my score on green will be 1, and at any time during the round you can find out your total score just by looking at the top number that's visible in the column. When you get animal dice, get an animal set of animal dice, you put them in your animal pen, which is here, and as previously described, the animal dice will not score anything for you unless you score the best animal set, in other words more animals than anybody else. At the end of the round, if you have the best animal set, you can move your animal dice into the best animal set column, and then you'll get 8 points for each dice that was in your animal set. If two people get exactly the same animal set, then they each put their dice into the joint best animal set column, and they will get 4 points each for those. If two people have the same number of different animals, then you look at the animal hierarchy, which is in the middle of the board. So at the end of the round, you just look on your board, you add up after you've moved any animal dice into the animal set, you add all the scores that are in the highest visible column, which is not covered by a dice, add those all together, and that's your total score for the round. There are, as you know, two different versions of the game, Wuppertal and Hollandica, and the scoring is slightly different for each. The Wuppertal scoring is quite simple. By contrast with the Wuppertal rules that I've just described to you, the Hollandica rules have their own board, which allow for a lot more tactics and a lot more opportunities to interact with your opponents and to try to spoil what they're trying to do. And the boards are laid out. You'll remember that with Wuppertal we had the columns were all different colours to match up with the different colours of the dice. Now for Hollandica, instead of the 5 different colours here, we have all the columns are a maroon colour. This means that when you get your first dice, or groups of dice, you can decide to dynamically allocate different values to the different colours of dice by placing them in these different maroon columns. So for example, if you get some green dice, then you can put them, for example, in the 4-point column here. From that point onwards, you have to keep all the green dice in that column, and you can't put any other dice of different colours in that column. When you get dice of different colours, you'll have to allocate them to either the 1, 2, 3 or 5 column. So each colour will dynamically be allocated its own value. Now the interesting part of that is that when your opponents are putting their dice on, they're not going to put them on the same columns as you, so different players will be having their dice a particular colour will be worth a different value from all the other players. So that gives to a whole load of new interesting tactics. Also, we have previously described that when you collect animals for the Hollandica rules, you put them. You're not collecting a bunch at once. You're collecting them individually, one at a time, and you're using them as wild cards in the sets that you're collecting. So you're getting them one at a time. You can't get more than one animal per turn. And what you then do is that you put one on each of the separate animal pens, which is also forms the animal hierarchy. So you put one on each, and in this version of the rules, at the end of the round, then it's the person with the most different animals rather than the biggest group of animals that are all the same. So you then, again, if you have that biggest number of animals, you can move them over and put them into the best animal set dice. If two people have exactly the same combination, then again they put their dice into the joint best animal column. And so both those things really very much change dynamics and the strategies involved with Hollandica Rules. Another thing is that because in Hollandica Rules you're collecting runs, ascending runs where they're all the same colour, that is relatively difficult to do. So we have awarded bonuses here. So for example, in the 1 point column, instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it goes 1, 2, 3, 14, 25, 36. So we're adding 10-point bonus here, and we're adding a 20-point bonus there, and a 30-point bonus there. So, and that occurs all the way across the column. So that's it really for the scoring for Hollandica. It's more complex, and for that reason we recommend that you don't play with more than 3 people when you're playing Hollandica, but there's much more, it's far more tactical and far more opportunity for stopping your opponent doing what they want to do. So those are the differences. And lastly, I need to tell you about the Master Scoreboard, which is going to be one of our stretch goals. So when you come to score at the end of each round, rather than using pen and paper, you can just move your special personalised counter along the scoreboard, using the 0 to 9 column and the tens columns below, and after each round everyone's counter will move along, and so you can see at any point who is ahead in the game, because Rolling Bears needs to be played over a number of rounds so that each person has an opportunity to start first. So it's played over multiple rounds, and so this stretch goal is ideal for keeping track of who's in the lead at any particular time.